Colorado head coach Deion Sanders just had his biggest win of the 2025 recruiting cycle.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Bourne. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We are also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Let's talk about it. Coach Prime, he's not normally known for recruiting at the high school ranks, right? A lot of his roster, not all of his roster, built through the transfer portal. He's brought in 42 guys this year. It was over 50 last year. He's brought in around 100 transfers, and he's only been in Boulder for about a year and a half or so, like about going on 2 years, you know? So it's like, okay, what positions is he going to recruit at the high school level? And which positions is he not even going to recruit, but have success at recruiting? Well, he struck gold the other day when Colorado landed a commitment from four-star receiver Quanell X Farrakhan Jr., the Houston, Texas product. He picked Colorado over, and this is an extensive list: Georgia, Texas A&M, Michigan, Miami, Florida State, Nebraska, Arizona State, UCLA, and Alabama. He was also viewed as a Penn State lock this past year, but obviously Colorado got into the mix and sort of made things happen. And so a little bit about him. He's been a varsity starter since his freshman season. He's appeared at 3 different high schools, has 132 catches, for over 2,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and is someone who 24/7 views as an advanced route runner, with strong production against some of the best competition in the state of Texas, and does a bit of everything. He kick return, punt return. He's a dynamic weapon. And so what does this mean for Colorado? Well, you look at the receiver room, and that's one room where I'm like, they'll probably never have problems there. They just won't. I think Coach Prime is probably going to showcase an ability to recruit wide receivers, corners at an elite level whenever he wants to. And I think this is obviously a big win for a Colorado class that we're still trying to see what Coach Prime's strategy is for this 2025 class. Like, is he going to sort of be all in on this? Like, is he going to be all in on recruiting this class, or what is the plan? Because right now they're at 6. They have him, Quanell. They have Alex Graham. They have Chauncey Gooden, Montrose Walker, Corbin Lazier, and then Jay Gardenshire Crooks. So they have 6 guys. Most programs, I would say right now, around that. I think you could probably say most programs around that 10 to 15, if not more range. A lot of them are in the 20s already. And so it's like, okay, what is Colorado's plan? Are they going to portal or whatever? Well, you get a receiver like this, and I think that helps attract other players. And I think one of the other players that Colorado is really trying to build around is Julian Lewis. So I think this is a recruiting win for building around a particular recruit. And I also think this is a recruiting win based on the fact that you look at the receiver room this year, elite receiver room, by the way, probably one of the best in the country. Travis Hunter, NFL bound. Jimmy Horn, NFL bound. LeJontay Wester, NFL bound after this year, right? So that's the top 3 projected receivers. They're all gone, right? So it's like, who's going to step in? Now, obviously, they have Draylon Mitchell. They have Cameron McCall. They have all these guys who are waiting in the wings. But it's like they're going to have pretty much an all brand new wide receiver core next year. And Will Shepard, probably same thing, going to the NFL. There's so many guys that they brought in, but at wide receiver specifically, a majority of them that are expected to have a role this year are likely going to be playing at the next level or trying to pursue a professional career next in 2025. So a guy like Quanell can come in, compete for a starting role, compete for snaps. He could obviously make an impact on special teams. And so he just brings so much to the table. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're Colorado, you want diverse athletes. You want guys that could do a little bit of everything, because you don't really know what the future looks like for your program, I guess you could say. You don't really know what is our 2 deep going to look like at receiver. You don't know what your lineup's going to look like at all next year. So having more depth does not hurt you by any means. And Quanell X Farrakhan Jr., wide receiver out of Houston, I think that's why I think he's the biggest sort of win of this portal class. Now, obviously, this recruiting class. Obviously, there's only 6 commits thus far. But to go into the state of Texas, beat out all the Texas schools, already a big deal. especially for a program like Colorado, who even with Coach Prime there, they still have to prove a lot on the recruiting trail. You go into Texas, you beat out the Texas schools. Penn State, very big program. James Franklin's hard to turn down. I don't think people realize, like, if you have a conversation with James Franklin and you like what you hear and he likes you, like, it's going to be hard to turn down James Franklin. It really is. Alabama was in the mix, and I think people, even without Nick Saban, people don't realize how appealing that Alabama brand is. Like, Alabama has the number one recruiting class in the country, and Nick Saban's no longer the head coach. It's an appealing brand. It's a big brand. And so for Colorado to win out like this, it is a pretty darn big deal, because the sky's the limit for this Colorado class. I think the more effort that they put into recruiting at the high school ranks, the more success they're going to have, and the more big recruiting wins like this they'll have, which, I mean, we all know. And I think a lot of people get worked up about this. To win a title, because that's everyone's goal at the end of the day, you have to be an elite high school recruiting team. People could say that the transfer portal will change that. There's been no proof of that thus far. The proof is in the pudding. Teams that recruit the most 4- and 5-star high school recruits are the teams that are winning championships. Now, this isn't to say that transfers don't play a factor, but this year with Colorado, this year with, say, I think Ole Miss is another good example, probably a better example in the sense of, like, they're viewed as a contender. I think this year will kind of tell us, can Colorado compete with the transfer portal, or are they going to have to lean more on the recruiting ranks? So a guy like Quanell Farrakhan, big deal. I think it'll help set up the program for years to come, for classes to come, if they could continue to win out in Houston and big places like that. So really big get for Colorado. Hoping to have Quanell on the show later this week. We'll see if our schedules align. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about someone who's a former Buff, and it's not the best update. It's not an update you want to hear. We're going to be talking about Cormani McClain. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank my everydayers. You know who you are. You tune in every single day. You comment, you like, you share, you subscribe, whatever it is. I appreciate the support that you guys offer. Also, I want to give a shout out. EA Sports College Football 25. Happy release day for all those who celebrate. It is the college football. It has a video game again, and I think it's a really big deal. Also, are you guys watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked on Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked on Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels at part of the Locked on Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Let's talk about Cormani McClain. This is, I won't lie to you guys, this isn't a topic to really shoot down. I mean, that's not my goal here. I think it just goes to show how difficult it can be. I think it's, yeah, we'll call it that. It shows how difficult it can be to sort of succeed at the highest level of college football. And you're probably wondering, like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you talking about him? Well, there was an update on social media the other day, and a Florida insider said, I was told that Cormani McClain has been late to most of the requirements, meetings, lift, etc. The way that it's handled is sort of like a strike system. Essentially, you get a warning, then you have to do extra stuff, run or lift, and then it says he's in the weight gain program, so he would have to do extra lifting, which he showed up late to as well. They started making the defense and the rest of the team do these extra lifts, thinking that would get Cormani to show up on time, and it hasn't. And then it says you're not going to be liked in the locker room if your tardiness/immaturity is causing the rest of the team to have to run. And then goes to what I said about Florida when they took a flyer on him, just immature, needs to grow up. And so what does this tell us about Cormani McClain? Well, it shows us something's not clicking there. Like whether it's his desire to want to play football, does he want to play football? Does he care? We're finding that out. Cormani McClain, I think people forget already because the Cormani McClain saga was just such a wild sort of experience, we'll call it. So we'll just start from the very beginning and I'll get to the present day. He flips to Colorado. His recruitment was a huge ordeal because he was supposed to go to Florida. Then he was supposed to sign with Miami, and then he didn't sign with Miami and ended up in Colorado. Shows up to Colorado late, shows up to Colorado out of shape, which I mean, altitude, it's tough up there. So can't fault him there. You're not going to be used to the altitude if you're from Florida. It just is what it is. You could try your best, but the altitude is always going to kick your ass. So what happens? What happens when he gets there? Well, he doesn't play right away. And everyone's like, wait, we were like expecting this dynamic corner duo between him and Travis Hunter, right? Like, where's this at? And then Coach Prime eventually says, you know what? I'll be honest, guys. He's not showing up to meetings. He's not watching film. He's late to things. And it's like, oh, there's a Cormani McClain problem, right? And so he played a couple times, played against USC, had a couple big plays, got a lot of playing time against Washington State later in the year, did not play well. When he did play, it just wasn't great, and it was obvious that there was still room for him to grow, and he's a freshman, true freshman, undersized, so it wasn't too shocking, right? And so it's like, okay, when is it going to start clicking? And so the whole offseason, there was rumors, which I told you guys, I think well before he entered the transfer portal, that I was told that he was going to transfer. And a lot of you guys were like, no, he's said on the well-off media videos he's not, which he did. He said he wasn't. And then he stopped appearing in those well-off media videos, which you guys were saying. He said he wasn't going to do it. It's in the well-off media video. And which, I mean, he did say it. So you guys weren't wrong. But what I was told was he was planning to transfer as soon as the portal window opened. And portal window opens, he enters the portal. And all of a sudden, it's like, I think I don't want to say, oh, that's a harsh comparison. I was going to say he's basically the other programs around the country kind of viewed him as not damaged goods, but it's like he's a problem. Like he didn't want to play for the best corner of all time. And so why are we going to give him a shot to come to our program? So his recruitment in the portal was really odd. It was not as busy as his high school recruitment. It was at one point, it was schools like USF was, I think, the favorite. Central Florida was also in there. There's just a lot of, which I mean, Central Florida is a Big 12 program, but there's a lot of like noise around Group of Five programs like Memphis or USF, like I said, and it's like, oh, is he gonna actually land at a Power Five? And then he ends up landing at Florida, and he's not on scholarship. He's a walk-on. Now, granted, there's NIL stuff that could factor in, and he could kind of, as soon as people leave, he could be given a scholarship if the staff feels it's necessary. But Cormani McClain did not work out in Colorado. And also, before he lands at Florida or whatever, he releases this YouTube video. And I don't know who advised him to do this or who, if anyone looked over what he was going to say, because he was like fielding questions. And you know darn well they're going to ask you about Coach Prime, Colorado. And he said he wants to play for a program where he's actually coached and isn't playing for clicks. And like takes a blatant shot at Deion Sanders and Colorado. And it's like, you want to play for a program that doesn't play for clicks, yet here you are making a YouTube video about that very program and getting clicks, right? That was the goal of the video. I promise you no one makes YouTube videos just for the sake of like, oh, this could be fun. Everyone wants to get views. Now there's some like YouTube videos where it's like, you know what? I don't really care. I just enjoy making content. And so this is what I'm going to do. And like, this is just a pastime for me. And obviously it's not something where I'm looking to make a career out of. That's for some people. Sure. When you're as notable as Cormani McClain, a former 5-star recruit, top 20 guy, and you make a video basically bashing the most popular coach in college football right now, what did you think was going to happen? And so he ends up at Florida. And so far, what we're hearing out of his tenure in Florida, which he's only been there for a few months now, it's not going well. And so I think it goes back to what I said when he was in the portal. And there's a lot of things to adjust to in college football. You have to adjust to no longer being the best athlete on your team. You have to adjust to no longer being at home. You have to adjust to the college lifestyle, which is classes where people aren't going to hold you responsible. Football players, they are kind of held responsible because they have people that check. But for the most part, you get to skip class in college. Everyone does it, right? It is what it is. Like, you don't have to go to school. The teachers don't care. I had a professor one time say attendance isn't required, but it's advised. And he's like, if you come, you will get everything you need to do to prepare for the test. And if you don't, good luck, because I'm not posting anything else anywhere else. And so you're going to have to study off of just the book and hope for the best. And so I think a lot of people don't realize just how difficult the college lifestyle could be for someone. And for someone like Cormani McClain, who's obviously showing signs of immaturity, it's not something he's grasping just yet, which is fine. But I don't know how long his leash is in Gainesville. Like, how long do they give him before they're like, you know what, dude, like, we wanted it to work out, but it's not working out. And we just think it's best for you to no longer be a part of the program. Because if it doesn't work out in Gainesville, one, I don't know if he'd be able to transfer anywhere else, like at the college, at the power level, at the FBS level, FCS level. He might end up having to go to a JUCO, which is what it, like, this isn't me saying it's going to happen, but this is, I think that's a realistic next step if it doesn't work out at Florida. That would mean he didn't work out at 2 Power 5 programs where the coaches are both player friendly. The coaches both want to help people out. And I think that just says a lot about you, more so than it does about the program. So hopefully for his case, something clicks upstairs and he's able to sort of move past this sense of immaturity where it's like, I don't know what's happening here. It's tough. You want to see the guy succeed, but it's like, you have to grow up. You have to do what you have to do. Like, if college football is already monotonous and hard for you to sort of want to do, you don't have a future in football, is what it comes down to. Because in college, you're at least getting an education, and I would say it's a little more lenient. But once you get to the NFL, I mean, we saw former Last Chance U star, I think this was on Hard Knocks 3 or 4 years, probably maybe longer, 4 or 5 years ago. Ronald Ollie, anyway, went to East Mississippi Community College, was a star there, was a star at Nicholls State, gets a shot in the NFL, and I think it was like a rookie mini camp or off-season training camp, something like that. And they're like, he was supposed to go to a training appointment and wouldn't go, and he was late, and he didn't want to practice. And they're like, dude, we don't need you. And they cut him. And his NFL career was over after that. Like, that is how quick things can work at the highest levels of football. And so if Cormani McClain is not careful, he could be putting his career at risk. And I don't know if that's something that he really wants to risk at this point. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Travis Hunter's latest comments about the offensive line. Was it serious? Was it a joke? Doesn't really matter. I'm going to tell you guys. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me a part of your day, making me your first listen of the day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. My everydayers, I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, liking, subscribing, following, all that jazz. Let's talk about Travis Hunter. You know, I had to talk about it. He was playing EA Sports College Football 25, which who isn't playing that game today? And he's playing against Deion Sanders. They're joking around, and they were going Colorado versus Colorado, which Shador was beating him 36-7. So obviously being a quarterback possibly helps when playing a video game. And so he's playing against Sanders, like I said. It's 4th and 22, and he gets sacked. And all of a sudden, he says something, and he says, yes, very realistic. I think he was reading the chat, and they said something about the offense line. And he goes, yes, very realistic. They can't block for nothing. And then he was obviously joking. And then it says, like, I'm trying to think of like how to present this. Basically, fans were like, what is this guy's problem? Why is he throwing his teammates under the bus? And then later in the chat, someone asked him, and he's like, I did it on purpose. I'm a troll. And people are still upset about it. And they're like, dude, what is going on? Like, what is happening? Like, don't you throw your teammates under the bus? Like, why would you do that? And Shador Sanders jumped on Twitter and says Travis was referring to last year's gameplay. And people are like, that doesn't even make sense because obviously it's a whole new offensive line. Realistically, I'm just going to call a situation what it is. I think it was a funny joke by Travis. I think it was something we could have avoided saying. And I think that's probably something that if they were to talk to him about, like Coach Prime's obviously not going to punish him for it. But if there was to be a discussion, it'd probably be like, hey, maybe don't do that. And that's about it. Like, I don't think it's that serious. I feel like people are taking it way out of proportion. Travis, at the end of the day, he plays offense. So why would he trash the guys who are the second most responsible people for getting him the ball? Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is the most responsible for getting him the ball. But after Shedeur, it's the offensive line. If Shedeur doesn't have time to throw, then Shedeur doesn't have time to throw it to Travis. And so Travis doesn't – no one has time. He's not getting the ball. So I just really need people to relax, pump the brakes. It's not that big of a deal. I don't think I would have said it. But at the end of the day, he likes to joke around on social media. So everyone relax. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Monday. Everybody have fun on EA Sports College Football 25. This has been Locked On Buffs.